Good morning. My name's Tiffany. Welcome to Library Adventures Live. We've got an absolutely brilliant session for you today. We're looking at the book Coyote's Soundbite, A Poem for Our Planet. So we've got poetry, we've got art, we've got an environmental theme, we've got a legendary poet performing for us, we've got a world-renowned illustrator doing some art with us. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Before I go any further, I'll just let you know that you might need a pair of scissors. You might need some paper. If you've got some cards, get your colouring pens out or your pencils and a glue stick, because later on we're going to be making something. So I'll just put all mine over there to one side so that I'm ready. And just to remind you, did you watch our Eid event last week? We had Sarah Shafi talking all about Eid, and there were some absolutely fabulous fun activities to do. If you missed it, don't worry, you can still catch up with it on our website at www.kirkleyslibraries.co.uk/LAL. We've got the list of all the previous episodes as well as what's coming up, and you can catch up with anything that we've done on there. Right, I'll hide that. If you would like a shout out from our guest today, then you can type in the comments box. You can send us a message. We'll say hi. If you've got any questions that you'd like us to ask live during the episode, please do talk to us. Put your comments in. And now it's time to introduce our guests. So, Coyote's Soundbite, A Poem for Our Planet, is an absolutely gorgeous illustrated book. It's got earth goddesses holding an eco conference, and we've got a really quirky, humorous character of Mr. Coyote gate crashing the conference. It was written by the poet, the legend John Agard. He's a playwright, a poet, a children's writer, born in Guyana. He's an absolutely awesome performer. I know because years ago I went to see him perform live and I still remember it. It was fantastic. So I know today we've got a real treat for you. And as if that wasn't enough, we've also got the world-renowned illustrator, Piet Grobler, joining us from Portugal. He's published over 85 books, and he's going to talk to us about how he brought the story to life. So I'll welcome them to the screen for you. Ooh.
Hello.
Hi, John. Hi
there.
It's wonderful to have you with us today. And before we go any further, I've just got to ask for a favour from John. And can you give a shout out to Hamira, who's the assistant head teacher at North Huddersfield Trust School, because she's a really big fan of yours.
Hi, Camira. Hope everything is going fine up there.
Thank you very
much. I hope you can hear me and I'm not on what's called mute.
No, I've remembered. We can hear you. I've remembered to unmute you today. And I think this is the first time that you've met, isn't it?
Oh yes, a few moments ago.
Yeah. So that's.
But I was hoping to meet Piet in Edinburgh, because we got invited to the Edinburgh Festival, but that might be another Zoom.
I think so. Another Zoom, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wonderful to have you meeting virtually anyway. And John, I was wondering, would you do some reading from the book for us?
Okay. Thank you for that warm introduction, Tiffany. And I think before I actually begin the reading, very briefly, just to say our thanks on behalf of Piet and myself to Alice Curry and Katrina Gutierrez of the Lantana team for doing a beautiful job of Coyote's soundbite. Coyote, as you know, is a trickster. But when you think of a trickster, you might think of someone greedy That is right. They can be greedy. But tricksters are also creative, help human beings to discover, for example, fire. So when Coyote's bushy tail in one legend catches a fire, he brings a spark to humankind. You might have heard of Anansi, especially if you live in Yorkshire, in the north of England, where you have many of your friends might be of Asian or of Caribbean descent. Anansi the spider, he's another trickster who can change shape and become female, can be greedy, but can also give gifts to humankind. So in this story, the earth goddesses from all around the world decide to meet up and have a big conference. But only the male animals are invited. And I think Coyote might find a way of attending. The breaking news spread like bushfire among all the animals of the rainforest. Earth goddesses were planning a conference. Excitement buzzed the air, as you can guess. The animals perked up ears, tails, feathers, spikes, horns, bristles, whatever. There they stood, on four legs, on hind legs, on tiptoe flippers, you name it. The animals couldn't wait. The common conference of earth goddesses from far-flung corners of the planet was going to be the first of its kind. And of course, the big burning issue the conference would discuss and ponder was whether humans are blind or have simply lost their mind. The earth goddesses should have some clue, for they were all known to be very wise. On earth, they'd keep their watchful eyes down to a butterfly's silent flutter, down to the coming alive of a flower in the sun-blessed light of spring, down to a golden air of corn ripening, a tiny seed waking in a cradle of darkness, a snail on a leaf softly spiraling, a mole in deep down burrow unwinding. The earth goddesses never miss a thing. Well, of course, only the male creatures are invited. But let's see what Coyote gets up to. Since nothing ventured, nothing gained, Coyote decided on the spur of the moment that he'd put on his wife's blue dress, a bit on the tight side, but would surely do. Besides, the dress went well with the toeless, high-heeled shoes and turquoise handbag. Out stepped Coyote with a zig and a zag. Mistaking Coyote for a high-class lady, two ravens ushered him to the front row. Then the chair goddess announced herself, Dharana, she whose singing gave birth to rain, had traveled from the land of the didgeridoo. To much applause, but without much ado, Dharana recalled how from her belly button had sprouted the very first witchetty grub for the first ever humans to feed on. Dharana and humans then spoke one tongue. So it was. In the dream time beginning, before the riches of Dharana's dark veins had become divided into losses and gains. With that, Dharana introduced Oduduwa, emerging from her calabash of ebony. Oduduwa said she'd keep it short and sweet. All she wished was to jolt human memory. Let them go ask the tree of 16 branches, from whose flesh grew the first kola nut. When first humans toddled on their butt. Imagining first humans toddling on their butt did make Coyote give a little grin, a laugh out loud. Belly laugh would be embarrassing. I think I've got time for one more goddess.
Yeah.
Next came the earth goddess, Kujum Chantu, who spoke of wonders of which legends told, legends passed on to the young from the old. How her eyes grew into the sun and moon, how her bones became hills, how her breasts became what's known today as Mount Everest. But most marvelous of all her telling was how Kujum Chantu's own belly fat became home ground for first humans to squat. Maybe I could end at that point. Is that about 10 minutes?
Yeah, that was lovely.
That's about 10 minutes?
Yes, that was excellent. Thank you. I just love the sound of your voice. I could sit here and just listen. That was excellent, John.
Oh, thanks, Tiffany. And you've got a nice Northern Yorkshire accent there, I think. Let's not forget that.
I don't think my voice is as relaxing as yours. Yeah, what an absolutely gorgeous book. And I think was it published on Earth Day?
On World Earth Day.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit more about the environmental messages?
Well, as you know, words like messages scare poets, because I say that when I give my talks to young people, whether teenagers, no matter how sincere you are, how heartfelt about things which deserve to be spoken about. Let's take the environment. As a poet, you're hoping that you're not giving an obvious message. A journalist writing an article about the environment. So how can I speak about the environment without making it look like I'm preaching? Obvious. And well, you know, I think Piet, as a South African, might be interested in cricket. I hope so. And in cricket, of course, there is something called reverse swing. You know, the batsman doesn't quite expect what's going to happen. So as a poet, it isn't about sincerity. You can write a very sincere poem about being a vegetarian, but it's a terrible poem. And another person comes along and writes a wonderful poem about eating meat. The images are rich and bloody and powerful. So it's how can you tell a story or let a poem unfold? And then I got this idea. It would be wonderful to have like a mock conference. And I like when I write that adults get a certain type of humor. So I've been to lots of conferences with academics, and they might speak about, the binaries and the paradigms and our next speaker. And I wanted to use that format, but the earth goddesses coming from different cultures speak passionately. And then Coyote, this is a slightly, if you want to call it, feminist touch, he can't go. It's only the female creatures, but he finds a way of going. But I don't want to give away the plot, because those who read the book, if I had ended where Coyote is the only male in the audience who comes up with this song, The Bite, if the story had ended there, I might have gotten a few letters saying, well, from a feminist perspective, well, John, we enjoyed the poetry, but why did it have to be a man who came up with the brilliant soundbite at a female conference? Well, I'll say no more, Tiffany. I'll say no more. Because the book didn't end at that point. And I'm grateful to that twist. Because you don't plan these things as a writer. You flow with the tide. But I was conscious as I got to the end, well, it might be clever, but Coyote comes up with this song bite, and the women are, they're fallen for this brilliant idea from a man who's pretending to be a woman. And then something else happened. And Piet, this is where we go back to cricket. Reverse swing takes. That's when reverse swing happens. And I know Yorkshire loves cricket, so I can always, speak about. I'm on good ground. As a little boy, I used to love listening to the commentaries of cricket from the great John Arlott. And I know how much Yorkshire values cricket. But of course, if I can say this off the record, a friend of mine wanted his son. He told me this story. He wanted his son to be part of the Yorkshire cricket team. And look at that, dreaming for Yorkshire. I couldn't believe this. He told me this story. But years ago, when you're from Yorkshire, there's a legend that says you meet an Englishman in the middle of Calcutta. And where are you from? He doesn't say I'm from England. I'm from Yorkshire. So they never allowed players from outside of Yorkshire to play. So this guy's wife is pregnant, but they're in Derbyshire. And he wants to get back to Yorkshire because she's in labor. And the taxi driver drives like crazy just so that she can deliver the baby in Yorkshire. That's what he told me, because you have to be born in Yorkshire to be able to play for Yorkshire in those days. And I found that a fascinating story. Anyway, the positive news is the baby was born in Yorkshire. And and
but did the baby get on the cricket team?
Oh yeah, eventually, hopefully.
And Piet, I think, were you very conscious of the environment with the techniques you were using for the illustration?
I was, Tiffany, yeah, but it's like John say, the backswing. I think I have said it before to people, if you want to hear a sermon, go to church. If you want to learn a lesson, go to school. But if you really want to have a good time, read a picture book or read a book. So I think as storytellers, that is foremost in your mind, as an illustrator or author. And it's a lovely bonus if there's a layer of meaning underneath the surface. And I think with the choice of mediums that I made here, I hopefully reflected something of the intentions, or my perception of the intentions of the poem, or some of the intentions, like awareness of the earth and how we go about it and look after it. So therefore, I used a lot of leftover materials. I am a bit of a hoarder, so I can't throw paper away. And when I was a lecturer in illustration in Worcester, I actually kept the scraps that was left after the printing sessions. When you cleaned your printing roller, this little roller, and you would clean it like this. You would go over the paper to clean it several times. But these leftovers were so lovely that I thought I'll keep them. And then I thought for this book, how appropriate really that we don't, paper don't go to waste. We just don't throw it away. I keep all the lovely little scraps, bits of paper like this that were leftovers from other projects I kept. And they were all becoming part of the trees and the forest that I created. And I thought it was a nice thought. Even my pencils, they are this little and I still keep them because sometimes I use them in quite a rough manner, like you can see here, to create texture for the leaves. I take all of them at one time in my fist, like this, the little ones, the big ones, all of them like that, and you go about it like that. And I think, therefore I don't throw away things that easily.
No, it's interesting to hear Piet say that because writers and poets have their own superstitions. People who are logical might say, "Oh, that's ridiculous." But if I wrote a few, I hope, nice poems with a certain pen, and that pen is no longer has any ink, I just can't callously throw it into the bin.
Yes.
I might find an excuse and say, "Oh, well, it's a bit of plastic. I suppose I can get away with recycling it, or I'll just leave it there." But I felt that this pen has given me some lovely poems. I just can't chuck it out. It's not just an object. Because coming from certain cultures, Caribbean, African, a so-called inanimate object has a spirit. I've heard a South African drummer told me once, you wouldn't step over a drum.
Yeah.
It's only a drum, mate. What's the problem? No. From some cultures, these things have a spirit. So that pen, which is being kind to me, I just can't chuck it out. And even though I mentioned Lantana and thank you, but now is a good moment for me to thank you, Piet. I tended to say Piet, which a new Piet. But thank you for your wonderful illustrations, because I think it was a lovely balance, so that they're very child-friendly, humorous, playful, imaginative, and inviting. So thank you, Piet, for doing a loving job.
Thank you. It was a joy to work with such a lovely poem, John. It was no hard work. It was just fun. Yeah, I think what I really loved about doing these illustrations is the fact that there are so many layers of meaning. I mean, John pointed himself out, the fact that there's sort of a feminist message, if you want to read it with such a view, that's definitely there. And I think, so many men have made such a mess of the world with their decisions and their politics. We needed an Earth Mother conference, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And then the humor, of course. And for me, it suited me very well, the combination of humor, because I take well to humor and humorous illustration, but combined with a more serious substance, then you also have the different cultures. And that's another message, all the cultures of the world and their connections with nature. And then how I had to go about that was sometimes a bit difficult for me. I had to really think, okay, what attributes must I portray, in order to create these characters like Oduduwa, Darana, all of them. Take little bits of visual, because that's the way we create images, is it not? We use recognizable things. If not, there's not a communication, because you don't have time to explain. You explain it instantly with an image. So I had to make use of recognizable, say, characteristics or cultural features or objects or things from nature, but not in a, no, it's not just a matter of making a fruit salad, cutting all the fruits and chuck it in. I hope that I was careful enough of putting these elements together in a way that it creates something that's suitable for this story at this time.
That's an important point, because we are conditioned by the Western world. So when you think mythology, you tend to think Greek. So if you mention Hercules, or you mention various gods and goddesses, but by getting exposure, I felt it was a nice way of exposing a reader in a natural context,
Yeah.
a variety of gods and goddesses. It's like if you were doing a love story. People might think instantly, oh, Romeo and Juliet. But then you have the Hindu, Rama and Sita, and so many exciting mythologies around the world. This is why in the old days, when people spoke of multicultural, if I'm speaking to a young audience, or just to simplify it, because sometimes through a simple image, you can speak about complex things. And if people are a bit hesitant about multicultural and multiracial, I related it to multi-story. You have the multi-story car park, but multi-story, STORY, is very simple. Every culture has a story to tell.
Yeah.
And if you see it in that very simple way, okay, I've been exposed to the Greek. I've heard that story, but I've never heard that Hindu story. I've never heard that African story. I've never heard that Chinese story. And that's how you can, in a very simple way, open your life and heart to other human beings, because an individual has a story to tell, but a culture has a story to tell, and those who wield the power write the history books. So when academics get bogged down in whether we should say multicultural, whether we should say multiracial, whether we should say plural, very simple, a multi-story vision.
Yeah.
That's
Very good
lovely.
image. Yeah.
We've
Lovely.
had we've had a really lovely comment from one of the viewers. I'll just put it up to I have to put my head above it. So Olivia said that she's really enjoying the session and loves the way that you've gone about getting the message across in a subtle but strong way, a way people will engage with and remember. A beautiful poem and illustration combination.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you.
That's excellent. And one of the things that I most enjoyed about the illustrations was the costumes for the goddesses and the like combination of nature and the way it suggested their culture, but not in a stereotypical way. I really liked that.
Oh.
So I'm sure everyone's going to be looking forward to borrowing the book from the libraries. And yeah, this week we've been able to extend our opening hours. So we've got a huge delivery of brand new books from during lockdown. Of course, we couldn't have any of the books arriving. So they've all come at once. We've got boxes and boxes of them.
Wow.
And I was going to ask, I have a feeling that, John, did you used to work in a library when you were younger? I was going to ask you both about.
Oh yes, in the old so-called colonial days, when I left sixth form, so I went to a Roman Catholic school, primary and secondary, and taught by Jesuits who placed great store by education and, of course, corporal punishment. But people don't realize that in that colonial situation, we were doing exactly the same texts that were set by Oxford. So when you get to sixth form, you had to do a Shakespeare text, Chaucer's prologue, etc. And anyway, when I finished A levels, my first actual job was teaching. In those days, you didn't have to be a trained teacher. You simply go for the interview, and if you did well at A levels, you were allowed to teach up to the O level. O level is ordinary level, a bit like GCSE O level, and then you spend 2 years in sixth form doing A level. They will normally get a graduate to teach A level. So I went for the interview. My first job was teaching, but I wasn't like planning to be a teacher. I was always, obsessed with scribbling. And then my next job was a librarian. Again, no training. And you didn't have male librarians. You had one guy, he was a male security. It was all women. And I think one guy who was first male. And I, fresh out of sixth form, a year of teaching, no big deal, no mystique. The librarian takes me around. She says, this little box is where you stick the overdues. That trolley with the Mills and Boone and the Hardy Boys, there tends to be a big rush. So we keep that trolley with the Hardy Boys and the Enid Blyton We keep those behind the counter. That's a little pocket incoming when they return their books, and that's for the outgoing. And by the way, this is called the Dewey Decimal System. So if you're looking for a book about biography, remember, John, it's whatever, 8-1. If you're looking for fiction, and then I'm a librarian, just stick it in there, John, the overdues. You don't have to be a trained librarian. So I did for a year, working as the only other male in what was called the public library, the Dale Carnegie Library. And because in the good old, shall we say, this is way back in time, pre-politically correct, and they associated women with being librarians. So because I was the only male with this other guy, and the security man is male, when they are going to begin what they call their first mobile library, going into the outskirts of the city, Georgetown, going into far-flung, roughish areas. Oh no, you don't send your female librarians there. You send the 2 male librarians and send the driver. And we had a wonderful time because he will drive the mobile bus, stick it into this far-flung area. We deliver a few brochures, what type of books you like, tick thrillers, tick this, tick that. And people come at irregular intervals, regularly, but with big gaps. And we are sitting outside the van, and we're chatting, and we're having a roll-up. And then at the end of the day, we drive back to the library. But they always let me and the other guy go. And the female librarians would be in the reference section and all of that. So I picked up the job on the spot. So I still have a bit of that instinct in me, though I wasn't trained. This is why the fire was a big blow, because I'm a hoarder of books. You go to a second-hand bookshop, you go to a car boot sale, and I don't only buy for me. I might say, well, oh, I didn't realize that Piet likes cricket. That's a beautiful book. And it's such a beautiful edition. Maybe Piet might like that. Oh, my friend Amanda, she likes gardening. I'll get that. Oh, that's a beautiful book on golf. And then the guy says, oh, mate, take the entire lot. Give us a $5. I come home with endless books, not ready for me, or even if I've got a copy. So we did lose, some books were scorched, just the brown binding, but I didn't have the heart to throw them away because they're still very readable. It's just that the binding is brown. So, the librarian instinct is still there. But now, you'll be pleased to know, Tiffany, I've gone beyond the Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah.
Among my clutter, if I'm stuck for a book, this is my classification system. I think I bought that book at the Oxfam bookshop in Corkleys. It was an Oxfam bookshop. So I rule out the carrier bag that says Tesco. I rule out the carrier bag that says Waitrose. And I go through all the Oxfam bags, and usually I find a book. Take that tip, Tiffany. You isolate them and compartmentalize them by the bookshop, the carrier bag you bought. So I think I bought that in Oxford. I'm pretty sure. I think it was an Oxfam bookshop. Oh, I think it might be that Oxfam carrier bag.
Yeah, we've not introduced that system yet into the Kirklees library.
Oh, yeah, this is very, very advanced. This is a very, very advanced system, I'm telling you.
Right, I'm just looking at the time and I'm thinking it might be time to do something a bit creative. And Piet, would you be okay to lead us through the drawing activity? And John, I'll just take us off the screen.
Okay.
So there's more space, but we'll come back in a little bit.
Okay.
Hi. I thought we don't have so much time, but let's do an exercise that is possible in a short time. This book, you'll see in the beginning of the book, we find the end papers. And also there's a sort of a second end paper. And the end papers are quite important pages to the book. They're not just wallpaper, but it sort of sets the scene, quite important to a picture book and a storybook are the characters, and John has created wonderful characters here, Mr. and Mrs. Coyote, and all the earth goddesses. But then also the setting is quite important of a story. So we are going to focus on the setting. Where did this story take place? Obviously in the rainforest, so forests are quite important. I thought, let's make a forest. I've shown you how I use loads of little scrappy papers, and I thought you can take your little pair of scissors. Now these you can make very easily. I've got to switch between the screens. As I've shown you, you create your own just by scribbling away like that, and put more than one color on top of each other. Then you create more interesting patterns and more interesting colors. You see, I use a good 3 colors on top of each other. So you make quite a number of those. I made them beforehand because we don't have so much time. But then we can just cut. Let's make one in the form of, you can, if you want, draw it out first. I would make cut a triangle out of that, and then let's make a fern of sorts, a palm tree. Go like that, like that. There you go. We have a beautiful leaf. Let's make another one. In this case, I'm going to go for this one. If you want to do it easier, or more interesting even, is to draw on the back side, because then it's always a lovely surprise to work with leftovers. So if I draw on the back side of this piece of paper that I've created, can you see? Like that. You cut that out. It's rather surprising what you get on the other side, because you haven't planned out everything so carefully, and it results into a more interesting foliage or leaves. There you go. Another one. Okay. Quite important when you make pictures is also to create pattern. That always helps to make an interesting picture. You'll remember I showed you these pieces of paper that I created with a roller. Now here, one can either do it blind, in other words, from the back side. But I'm going to cut like that. And here you could use any piece of paper. It need not be paper created with rollers like I did. But I've identified an interesting little stem there. So let's make a few. Because as you might know, in forests, even though we have a lot of variation, I mean, there's loads of different kinds of trees, there's also a pattern. If you stand back or look from a height, it becomes a unity. And therefore, it's quite important when you make the picture to create a little bit of that repetition and pattern. That's why I use, so all these pieces of black paper to make the tree trunks. I think I'm going to go for a few palm trees, because we get quite a lot of those in a rainforest, at least. As I've said, you could use anything. I could grab a piece of paper over here, which is also leftover green paper that I had. I could create another long strip like that, a palm tree. Okay, if I want it to be more similar to the others, I could always afterwards go on top of that. Here I have a white coloring pencil, and you thought you will never use your white pencils. This is why when you use them on top of colored paper like that. Make it all stripy. Okay, I think it's time perhaps to glue some down so we have an idea where we're heading with this picture. Can you see what I do? Sort of. I think I should move slightly more there. Okay, then I glue on the back side of that, but this you can all do very well. Let's make a few trunks. Glue sticks are quite handy. They're easy to work with. I sometimes love to use other kinds of glue as well, but this goes quickest. Little glue stick. So we're going to make a palm forest. They're all exotic palms, as you can see. They're quite different from each other, and then we can use some of these papers that we've created. Okay, let's put that on the one black one. There. Okay, then we have the pink one. When I made this book, you'll notice that I've used so many colors. I wanted to portray the fact that there's so much variety in nature and also in the animal kingdom. We've got so much variety. Therefore, when I made the animals, it gets quite crazy, and I used line drawings to make loads of little animals and birds on top of each other. I think it can sometimes be quite important not to be too careful when you work, not plan it out everything too meticulously, because then your picture could look a bit stiff. I quite like something that's slightly more spontaneous, so therefore I work in a rather rough manner. And also when I draw, sometimes I don't plan it even that well for this reason, to get these surprises. Okay, you'll see, but I think now we could also do something with some of the markers that I have. And I never throw anything away, as I've said already. This marker is quite dry already, but I still keep it because they come to good use. I quite like the fact, that the color is broken. It's not a solid color. It's broken, and it's therefore it still serves a purpose, even though it's quite an old marker. Okay, then I can go with a blue in this area as well to get some repetition of the color as well that I have put down on other places. Okay, I think we need something darker here, as you can see, and the more you draw, the more accustomed your eye will get, and the better you'll know what you'll get when you do what. You understand your materials, to develop your techniques. And if you want to work finer, you could, of course, give your palm trees leaves more definition like that. But that's not all important. I think in this case, we want to recreate the thicket, the denseness of the forest. That's quite important for me, I think, in this case. So I think that's quite an attractive, but if we want to add things, let's do some bushes here. And here we could, yet again, you could mix your media quite a lot. I quite like to work with pastels as well. They're a bit messy. Go on top there. So then I think I need a little bit of black. Then I go with a marker on top of that. We don't have time to do everything. I just want to give you an idea, because I would really love you, when you have more time, to spend more time and create a forest like ours. These are grasses, some bushes. think the only thing that we need now are some animals. Let's go for a pink bird. And everybody can draw. Even if you think you can't, you can. It's quite simple to make a bird. I use a simple shape like that. And then you can add a little bit of detail later on. So I want to give her wings. Here again, I use the markers, and I'm not too careful about it. As you can see, little spots. This is a bird of paradise. The detail with the eye. Black beak. Now I think we need a little bit of green. We have lovely greens there. This yellow. It's almost fluorescent. Let's repeat it a little bit there on this side as well. And here, and here, and here. But I think we have run out of time now. And then afterwards, I could just add a little bit of feathers on the bird's legs. So I want to show you closer up. I don't know how possible it was for you to see from this angle. But as you can see, it's quite simple to create a whole little forest of palm trees by just cutting scrappy bits of paper or create new textures and colors in a very short time. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, Tiffany.
Oh, that was excellent. Thank you. We've got some lovely comments. Katrina is very pleased. What a gorgeous forest. And Kirsty, what a fantastic and creative event this has been. And let's see, I don't know how you managed to do all that so quickly. I was doing mine along with you.
Oh, well done. That was beautiful.
I'm very proud of it.
You must know, Tiffany, I've been doing this for many, many years. So I'm quick now.
But yeah, I was like doing my bird, and when I looked up, yours is finished and coloured in and everything. It was like, whoa! I'm gonna need to like watch the replay to improve my bird.
I hope I wasn't too quick about it and too fast.
No, it was really good. Thank you. And yeah, in the school holidays, I think we're going to go around to some of the holiday clubs doing sessions. And I think if you wouldn't mind, I think we might take Coyote's Soundbite and that activity and do that out and about with some of the children.
Okay, no, I would be flattered, and especially if they do it, you know, the forest at the end papers. I think that's a very nice kind of thing that one could recreate without too much trouble, just with textures and colors and cutting and pasting.
Yeah. I really like some nice end papers. And I liked your idea of doing it on a big sheet and using it as wrapping paper as well.
Yes, yeah.
Right, I'll see if we've got John. I don't know whether we might have lost his picture just now. Let's see if I can get him back. Oh yes, he's still there.
Oh, hi there.
Sorry, John, I thought I'd lost the picture of you. I wonder if you'd read from the book for us again.
Well, I know we're running out of time, so I just wanted to make a comment and say it was wonderful seeing how Piet created the forest, because a lot of young children out there, even though painting and you're dealing with strips of paper seem more immediately physical, it's not unlike dealing with words, because an Irishman, according to the story, once said, you know, what's a poem all about? A poet is like a bricklayer. You get the right bricks in the right place, and you're all right. You know, and poetry is being described as the right words in the right order. So whereas Piet can physically move around a strip of paper, don't think the poet might not need to do that sometimes, because you might begin with a stanza and you find that opening doesn't work, and you lose that opening, or you lose that last stanza, you shift around, And I don't throw away either. The way Piet might salvage bits of paper. You might see an old poem that isn't really working, but you like a line, and that line takes you somewhere different. So I think of that, and you can then begin to see words not just as abstract, but as the Irishman said, you're a bricklayer, but you're using words and you play around and you realize if you drop that last stanza because you said it better in the previous, you don't need to come back to that. And if you do away with the first, but because Pete and myself would both agree, and any writer, you might write a beautiful book, but you need that middle person. That middle person could be a bookseller. That middle person could be a teacher who directs a child towards a book. That middle person could be a librarian who simply says, "Oh, you've been reading Hardy Boys, John, and you've been reading Enid Blyton. Well, how about trying this?" And I was struck by a comment Anne Fine once made, that if he had to choose between being a writer and a reader, she might have to go for being a reader, because you can never stress too much. Books feed books, ideas feed ideas, and you can't hope to be a writer, or for that matter, an illustrator. Some people have this delusion: I don't want to be influenced, I want to be original. Do you read poetry? Oh, no, no, no. I don't want to be influenced, I want to be original. Do you look at various illustrators like Piet Grobler or my dear friend Satoshi Kitamura? Oh, no, no, no. I don't look at work by any illustrators. I want to be original. This is why the library and librarians like you, Tiffany, play an important part. And in a book I wrote about books, in the voice of the book, I use this poem, which celebrates a library. I entered an orchard where the fruits could be eaten, yet returned to the tree. I sat in a garden where the flowers could be picked, yet no harm come to the stems. I went into a house that was empty of people, yet peopled with voices. I was in a room that hadn't much of a view, yet horizons leaned towards me. In this place, I forgot myself in ancient memory, yet found myself renewed. Where was I? A library. So thanks for inviting us, Tiffany, and I hope you have a happy day.
Oh, that was
great
wonderful.
to meet you, Piet. Piet, I got to recondition my I have to recolonize my pronunciation. Piet.
It's okay. I like the Piet. I like the
Piet. Well, wonderful meeting you, and I hope we'll get to meet one of these days in person.
It would be lovely, John. It was so good to be on the screen with you and Tiffany.
And if we are in Kirklees, Tiffany and Kevin, I haven't forgotten you, the song man. You threatened to invite us to those hidden away pubs of Kirklees.
Yeah, we'll definitely give you the tour when you come to Kirklees. We'll have to take you to some schools first to meet some and some libraries.
Education. You need a bit of education along with the dark brew, of course. A bit of sobriety.
And before we say goodbye, I really must say, Coyote Soundbites, published by Lantana, really amazing publishing house, and they do a thing where if you buy a copy, they donate a copy. So I'm just going to put a banner up, if I can find my mouse and my banner, so that people at home have got the website. Sorry, I found it. So there we go. For everybody watching, if you'd like to buy a copy of Coyote Soundbite buy it from the Lantana website, because then there'll be a donation of a book to someone who would really appreciate it. Oh, and of course you can borrow the book from the library too. So I'd like to thank both of you for a really wonderful session. I've really enjoyed having you on Library Adventures Live and listening and watching and joining in. And I'm sure everyone at home has too. In fact, I think we've had another couple of comments from viewers. Katrina, who's very pleased, and message from Kev, who's looking forward to when you come up to Kirklees and we can go go show you around. So thank you very much, John and Pete, and yeah, I hope we'll see you soon.
Thank you everybody, and Lantana.
Thank you very much. Take care, Pete. Take care, Tiffany. Take it easy.
Bye
bye.
Oh, sorry. And just for everyone at home, if you have done your picture, like mine, then we really would love to see it. If you send it in to us, we'll add it to the website. So the email address to send photographs of your pictures is lal@kirklees.gov.uk, and we'll be able to put it on our page on the website where you can watch all the other Library Adventures live events too. And it's a bumper week for Library Adventures Live, because we've got another event tomorrow. It's a LAL Plus, an extra special one celebrating Greenaway shadowing. So Greenaway is a book award for children's books for beautiful illustration, for outstanding illustration. And we've got Sharon King-Chai, who was shortlisted for her book Starbird, joining us tomorrow. That's at 10 o'clock instead of 11. So if you'd like to find out about Sharon's inspirations and join in with another draw along, then we'll see you at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Or of course you can catch up on the website. And I hope I'll see lots of you coming into the libraries and borrowing Coyote Soundbite, Starbird, and lots of our other brand new books, because we've got lots and lots of them at the moment to tempt you with. Okay, see you all later. Bye-bye.